Next we go to the Beni Hassan tombs, and there I find another professional film crew. Now this one is an independent organization, not like BBC. The folks that were doing the work were mostly British. In fact, I think maybe entirely British. But the company that was backing them, or at least one of them, was a Lebanese company. These paintings on the walls are clearly worth videotaping. And here's a kind of scene I've never seen before in an Egyptian tomb or temple. It's guys wrestling, and it's a very extensive depiction of that, various wrestling moves and everything. They're all quite different. When Pharaoh Akhennaten and Nefertiti, his wife, established a new religion dedicated to the Atan, they moved the capital from the old site of Luxor to Amarna. And when they did that, they selected Amarna because it was a virgin site. It was a virgin site because there wasn't any particularly good water source there, and that turns out to have been a big problem for him. Nevertheless, he built a city here. The religion and the new capital only lasted as long as Akhenaten lived. Then it moved back to Luxor, and the old religion returned. Akhenaten was likely buried at a tomb near here. But when the court moved back to Luxor, that is what was called Thebes at the time, his body was probably disinterred and moved to the Valley of the Kings, although that's unclear. To get to his tomb, you first go down a flight of 20 stairs to the main entrance. We asked the keeper of the tomb why he banged on the door before he opened it, and he replied he wanted to wake up the spirits to make sure that they understood they were going to be getting guests. On the right-hand side, there are some unfinished rooms halfway down the corridor. At the bottom of the flight of stairs, there's a bridge over a deep pit. I assume that was intended for tomb robbers. And this is where the sarcophagus ought to be. There is still some decoration on the walls, although much of the walls are simply unfinished. This happens to be the army and the chariot corps. And this is the classic scene of Akhenaten and Nefertiti and the Atan. The figures here have been badly damaged, probably in antiquity, by Egyptians that were unhappy with the rain. After it was over, they did this, probably. Remember Akhenaten and Nefertiti because we're coming back to them. We're back in Saqqara, and in the distance there you can see the Bent Pyramid. But in front of the Bent Pyramid there's another pyramid, and that pyramid is the pyramid of Pepi II, who lived around 2250 BC, that is about 4,300 years ago. According to tradition, Pepi lived for something over 100 years, and he ruled for 96 of them, having come to the throne when he was about 6 years old. That makes him the oldest living, the oldest reigning monarch of all time, if that tradition is true. Now, Pepi was one of the last of the Old Kingdom rulers, and there are, of this period, many surviving inscriptions talking about trading expeditions to the south. One of the most interesting concerns, a nomarch named Harkuf. Now, a nomarch is someone who is in charge of a nome, and a nome is like a province or a state in Egypt. And nome number one, which is the one that he was in charge of, is the one that's furthest south on the Nile. Now, Harkuf had made many journeys into Nubia, that is what we would call Sudan today, and on one occasion he wrote back to the 9-year-old Pepi II, describing a dancing dwarf that he was bringing back to Egypt. The excitement of the little king is conspicuous in the letter that he wrote back to Harkuf, and it's possible to see in his words the young fellow unable to contain himself and forgetting his royal dignity. So we're going down to Aswan, which is where the first nome was, and we're going to visit the tomb of Harkuf. Harkuf's tomb, like the tombs of many of the nobles of this area, is on that mountain over there. Now, this is the text that Pepi II writes back to Harkuf. He says, "You have said in your letter that you have come down in safety from Yam, that is Sudan, with the army, and brought many beautiful gifts, which Hathor, that it's a goddess, the lady of Yamu, has given to the king of Upper and Lower Egypt, that is, to Pepi. You also say in this letter that you have brought a dwarf, it could have been a pygmy, of divine dances from the land of the horizon dwellers, like the dwarf whom the treasurer of the god Borded brought from Punt, that is probably Ethiopia, at the time of King Iesi. You say to my majesty, never before has one like him been brought by any other who has visited Yam." King Pepi goes on to write to Harkuf, "Each year you do what your lord desires, spending day and night with the caravan. Now come northward at once to the court. You must bring the dwarf alive, sound and well, to rejoice and gladden the heart of the king of Upper and Lower Egypt. You say to my majesty, never before has one like him been brought by any other who has visited Yam. When he comes down with you into the ship, appoint reliable people who shall be beside him on each side of the vessel, and take care lest he should fall into the water. When he sleeps at night, appoint trustworthy people, who shall sleep beside him. Inspect him 10 times a night, because my majesty desires to see this dwarf more than all the products of Sinai and Punt. Punt is probably Ethiopia. Pepi was extremely excited. Pepi concludes his letter by saying, "If you arrive at the court and the dwarf is with you, alive and well, my majesty will make you many excellent honors, to be an ornament for the son of your son forever. All the people will say, when they hear what my majesty does for you, 'Is there anything like this, which was done for the privy councillor Harkuf when he came down from Yam?'" This is the hieroglyphic of the dwarf, taken from the front of Harkuf's tomb.
When he ruled again, he was young boy, say Pepi, yeah? Almost 6 years. That's why he is at Harikhof. He want to bring for him that dwarf as a kind of clown, play with him, and he's still in
Aswan, where Harkuf's tomb is located and where the first nome was, is at the first cataract of the Nile. Now, the first cataract is the first falls or rapids that you come to as you travel south on the Nile. And it is the traditional end of Egyptian territory proper. And furthermore, it is also the gateway to points further south, like Abu Simbel, which is where we're going next.